We're joined now by Justin and Christian Long. So you guys got your quarantine routine down at this point. So we're about a month into this thing?
Yeah, surprisingly, we've become like a married couple in that we like, well, not in every way, but we have coffee in the morning and we do yoga together. We've gotten into yoga the last week.
He does his puzzles and I wait patiently and I scroll through my thing. Yeah, we've gotten into a good routine.
Yeah, I hesitate to say how I enjoy it because I know how it's, people are really suffering with this, but I've gotten into a nice routine and kind of enjoyed the isolation somewhat.
It definitely gives you like a new perspective on what was going on outside of our quarantine houses here. And you guys, obviously, you're really close. You guys podcast together, directed and wrote a movie together recently. Yeah. You talk a little bit about kind of your working relationship as much as your sibling relationship.
Well, we get along equally well, I think, working together. It's funny. People would ask me like, "Whoa, you work with your sibling, and you must have some crazy fights, and there must be a lot of discord." And I don't know if we ever really disagree.
No, I mean we just
creative thing.
Well, and when we do, it never feels like acrimonious.
It's not like an impediment.
Working kind of feels like an extension of a friendship in a way, and it's just something that you get to accomplish. Whereas in a friendship, you often, waste a lot of time when you're hanging out with someone.
I'm sure you talked to Dennis Quaid about that with Randy. Did he go into that?
He went deep on that. They didn't make the final cut.
Oh, okay.
That was more of a kind of a before the hit record.
That must have been a treat. I grew up I love Dennis Quaid. We'd love to have him on our podcast. We were huge. We loved this movie Inner Space growing up. Have you ever seen Inner Space?
Yeah.
Oh God, the best. He was so cool. I mean, he is cool.
And The Right Stuff. The Right Stuff's a classic.
Oh yeah. But you talked to him about that. So I had never seen that baseball movie you guys were talking about.
Yeah. So The Rookie. I had met. I was, I think, 8 years old. I had met the rookie like in his one season in baseball. This guy had come up. He was a high school teacher. His baseball team convinced him to try out for the major leagues. Somehow he still had a 98-mile-an-hour fastball in his back pocket. Made the team, and then I was at a game. I got his autograph, met the guy, took a picture with him, and then the movie came out 2 years later. So this interview was like 20 years in the making.
That's cool. Wow. That's cool. I remember we were talking about autographs. I was on Michael Rosenbaum's show, and we were talking about autographs. Mm-hmm. At first, I sort of which I immediately took back. I kind of shamed him because he has all these autographs. He has all these like movie posters, like The Jerk, Steve Martin autograph, and he was like, yeah, Dax Shepard was in here, and he was like, I don't get the whole thing with autographs, adults and autographs, and I was like, I kind of agree with Dax. And then as we were talking, I realized that I had a bunch of autographs from like Michael J. Fox and Matt Dillon and these guys, and I completely had to walk it back.
You got that autograph from what's his name? Anthony Young.
Yeah.
Remember Anthony Young on the Mets?
Remember him, Chris?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I think he broke, at the time, he had the record for most consecutive losses.
He did.
As a starter.
It was the game where he was set to tie the record.
He lost like 21 games in a row or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and it was the game where I think he either tied the record or was like set to break the record. Did you say break the record if it's a bad record?
I think so.
Yeah, I guess so. And I saw these kids. He was signing autographs, which was really nice. And I didn't have a baseball, but I had for some reason a tennis ball with me. We used to put pennies in the tennis balls to like train to like. So I had that. I took the pennies out and I ran down to where he was signing, and he had a Sharpie, and he took my tennis ball, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? You want me to sign?" I forget exactly what he said, but he was like, "You want me to sign this tennis ball?" And I couldn't understand why that was such a problem, just because it was like a different sport and it was weird. But I in retrospect, like signing a tennis ball, it's because it's so hairy.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Especially like old worn-in tennis balls. Yeah. I'm imagining it was one of those.
But I still have it. I still have that Anthony Young tennis ball autograph.
I want to throw it right back to Justin. What's the weirdest thing anyone's asked you to sign?
It happened recently. They wanted me to sign it wasn't that weird. It was their skin, their arm or something. I mean, I've signed like fleshy parts of bodies,
Oh.
but
What kind of fleshy
well,
parts?
many, shoulder blades,
Uh-huh.
traps.
Uh-huh.
But I signed. But what made this weird was that she had said it was for the express purpose of getting tattooed. She was going to tattoo because she had and another weird addendum to that is that she had a tattoo of my I did this movie Jeepers Creepers where at the end, spoiler alert, I die and my eyes are gone and it's really gruesome. Sorry if you haven't seen it, but it's been 20 years.
Spoiler alert. That's a spoiler.
Spoiler alert. And so she had a tattoo of my face, my kind of eyeless face from that. Did I tell you this?
Yeah.
And so you have to hear this again. And she goes, will you sign right underneath because I want to tattoo this signature. So I was very self-conscious.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure, yeah.
You want to have a nice signature.
Oh,
yeah.
But then you don't want to do it slowly and deliberately because then it'll look like kind of, shaky.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it, and I wasn't totally happy with it. She was like, "It's fine. It was the first one." And I said, "Are you?" I kept saying, "We're like, are you sure you want to I felt like mom, you want to permanently, you want to keep that on your body for." But obviously, it was very flattering. It was just this is like a humble brag story. So anyway, she wanted my autograph on her skin. Yeah, that was probably the weirdest because she got it permanent, and then she came back the next day and sure enough, she had tattooed it.
Your new film, Lady of the Manor, you guys co-wrote and co-directed the movie. You guys shot it down in Tampa, St. Pete, and I heard you guys got to go to spring training baseball, which to me is like getting a bottle of whiskey right before Prohibition. What was it like going down there and seeing some spring training games?
We're big Mets fans, and we were on the other coast, unfortunately, from Fort St. Lucie. So we had an opportunity to go to a Yankees spring training game. And I'm not, Mets Yankees obviously are rivals to some degree because they're both in New York, but I grew up kind of liking the Yankees too. I was never one of those Mets fans who hated the Yankees and loved them. So we went to a Yankees game, and it was so fun because bragging, we got to sit in the front row.
Thanks to our mutual friend Joe.
Hooked us up with great seats, and it was amazing. It was like all
so
the best
cool.
parts of going to a major league game, and with none of the bad parts. None of the crazy lines to get drinks. And
what was that stadium called? It was the Blue Jays spring training. It was in Dunedin.
Dunedin.
It was a beautiful stadium and not that crowded. It was crowded, but it was manageable crowds, and you're right there. It was really,
it was amazing.
Even the seats, the nosebleed seats, were I went back there to somebody that we knew was back there, and they were great. Every seat there was.
It made me realize that I never really want to go to a regular season game again.
I know.
It's just such a better experience going to spring training.
Yeah. And the Yankees Mets thing when we were growing up, it wasn't so much I remember it being more of a class thing. Our parents were or our dad anyway was I think he instilled in us that Yankees, because they had more money and the tickets were more expensive, and that was always kind of my.
Well, they also say that most Mets fans are that's the New York City team. That's people who live in the city root for the Mets, whereas people in the outskirts, Long Island and Connecticut and Westchester, tend to root for the Yankees.
Oh,
more.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mets fans are real New Yorkers.
Yes, yeah.
But we grew up in Connecticut, so we're posers. We probably should have been Yankees fans.
I'm from Westchester, so I'm.
Oh, really?
Who did you like growing up, Chris?
I'm a huge Mets fan. My dad actually worked for the Mets during the '80s. We have that connection. I agree. There's a different energy in the city when the Mets are winning versus when the Yankees. There's just a different flavor to it.
Well, we also were. We were fair weather fans in the sense that when we were growing up, the Mets that was the '86 Mets. We got to witness that.
I was a little young for that, but see,
the Yankees weren't very good.
The Yankees were amazing when I was in high school and college,
Uh-huh.
and those were really important years, obviously, as a boy, in your fandom, your teenage years. Yeah. So that's why I kind of like the Yankees too, because they were always, they always went deep in the playoffs during the late '90s, early 2000s. So I was rooted for the Yankees too, and the Mets were kind of bad for a lot of the '90s.
Another nice thing about that stadium, it just occurred to me, was that the the population of that town, Dunedin, is mostly Scots and Canadians, and I happen to like both nationalities so much. I love Scottish people and Canadians so much. It was just such a good mix.
And a blue jay is one of your favorite birds.
It is actually. It is, and I loved anyway the Blue Jays growing up because my dad he went to school in Toronto, and I had an affinity for Toronto, and I thought they had cool uniforms. John Olerud, they had those great teams.
You identified with John Olerud? Why?
Yeah, well, I had a weak chin and I was very white.
Justin, you got the Jets hat on there. Which team do you associate more misery with, the Jets or the Mets? Because I like to go back and forth on it. I'm a fan
easy
of both.
For me.
It's easy for him because he was always a Jets fan.
Way more misery with the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Mets, but
the Mets at least had
the Jets. I'm more emotionally connected to the Jets. The Jets have provided like endless hours of like pain, and like tears in my life.
See, when I was growing up, I was a Rams fan. I loved the Rams, and because I thought their uniforms were the best. But when I was a kid,
Justin was a real fashionista as a young boy, so he always gravitated to more outrageous, beautiful outfits in the sports teams.
And they were fantastic. Those horns. I just loved Eric Dickerson with his stuff and the goggles, and I thought it was so cool. That's an autograph I got growing up. I didn't meet him in person, but I wrote him a letter, and he was so nice. He wrote back a little black and white photo, and it said, "God bless Eric Dickerson." And there was a comma, which I just wasn't reading properly. It was in the black part of the black and white photo. And for years, I thought it said, "God bless Eric Dickerson." So I was like, "Oh, that's pretty kind of arrogant." I mean, he's a great running back, but take it easy.
God did bless him.
Yeah.
Did you guys have like backyard sibling rivalries, like backyard pickup games?
Oh, football.
Dude, we have We have funny videos of us dressed up in we had little football uniforms.
The Hutch, remember those Hutch uniforms?
Yeah. You had the Rams. And our older brother, who like couldn't care less about sports, I think he had, for some reason, he had a Cowboys uniform.
He didn't like sports, our older brother, but he liked to like kind of boss us around because he was the older brother, and so he did a lot of like, you're not playing by the rules, and there was a lot of that. But he had the Bears. He was into the Bears, right? Because I think this is why because they were doing so well in the NFC that year in '86, which is the year that the Rams had a good run. I think it was '86, '85, the '85 Bears.
They won the Super Bowl.
They won, yeah. And then they beat the Rams in the championship. And I think our older brother was like supporting the Bears just because he wanted to like stick it to me. And I'll never forget that championship game. I had to stop my parents. I was a really like traumatic little kid, like tantrums and stuff. And my parents, they didn't let me watch the next couple of weeks. Well, the next week was the Super Bowl. They made me stop watching that game at a certain point because it was so heartbreaking.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
I'd argue that your sports movie, Justin, Dodgeball, is the most inspirational sports movie of all time.
David and Goliath's story truer than the Bible itself.
If you guys had to pick some major league players to be on a Dodgeball roster, who would you choose?
I would like Jeff McNeil on my Dodgeball team. He's versatile. He's agile. He's wily.
Yeah.
And I think that he'd make a really good Dodgeball player. You want someone with a really strong throwing arm, so you want like, DeGrom would be good.
Yeah, I like Gregorius. He seemed very agile, all those things. I remember the first day we did Dodgeball training, we did a week of like training for just to learn the moves and stuff, and we trained with the champions, the Poughkeepsie. I think they were the real like Dodgeball champions that year. I think they were called the Poughkeepsie Cougars or Flying Cougars or something, and I think they were actually in the movie. And I was so cocky about my dodgeball skills because it was the one sport that I was really good at when I was a kid, and I was good at it because I was able to evade the ball. I had a lot of fear, and I was quick and little, and so I think you'd want some
small, like Chuck Knobloch.
Yes, yeah, or Ricky Henderson, or somebody with like low center of gravity who was agile, who could move.
Mm-hmm.
You also need a weird cast of characters too, to melt together.
That is true.
You need like
John Crook or something.
John Crook would be good.
Or like who else was weird? Chuck Knobloch was a little weird.
I'm sure there's not a lot of weird baseball players.
Yeah.
We met David Ortiz.
David Ortiz. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. He's also
That's a
very
character.
Yeah, there's a lot weirder NFL. Now that I think about it, NFL, NBA players than baseball players, right? Like baseball is more
traditional.
conservative
Yeah.
to the players.
There's not a lot of room for like
Yeah.
expressing yourself aesthetically or.
Mhm.
It's like now I'm thinking of that like Simpsons episode where Monty Burns keeps telling Don Mattingly to shave his sideburns. Shave your sideburns, hippie.
You know what's always weird to me about baseball too is that they make the managers wear the uniform, and often the managers are like old, overweight, like Bobby Cox on the Braves or something. It's so goofy looking. And
Tommy Lasorda.
Can you imagine? I always wondered if the other sports adopted that. If like Greg Popovich had to wear a basketball uniform, or isn't that weird? Or like Bill Belichick had to wear like pads and a football jersey and a helmet.
Or like who's the Knicks coach? He was like the little guy.
Van Gundy.
Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah,
It'd be funny to see him in a baggy basketball shorts. I mean, some guys would, like Phil Jackson or like some.
Well, he was a basketball
yeah.
So your podcast, Life is Short. You guys got some amazing guests on the show. Can you tell me a little bit about how the show started?
Wondering.
Yeah, this company called Wondering. Yes, they approached me and it just, I don't know. I always liked the format. There was something about when you do televised talk shows and like late night shows and stuff. There was always this. It always felt like a lot of pressure, and you have to get everything out in little sound bites and 5-minute segments. You have to be. There's just like this heightened awareness of what you were saying. So I like the long form interview style, and I'm long-winded, so that's my style.
And we've gotten really good guests. We've gotten some really fascinating, interesting guests.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. At first, Chris, it was about like before it was a show that we could tell people to listen to, and we had examples of episodes. I kind of had to reach out to friends. A bunch of our friends were on, and so those were the first few episodes. Excuse me. But since then, we've been lucky enough to have, and not just actors. At first, it was mostly just actors, and we've since had like Neil deGrasse Tyson and what other non-actors? A bunch of Bill Nye. We've been really lucky. Really lucky.
I always think back to Comedy Bang Bang because I kind of came to it late. Now there's 600 episodes, and I'll go cherry pick some of the guests. So for the viewers out there that haven't got a chance to check out the podcast yet, can you point them to a couple of your favorite episodes to check out?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think the Max Greenfield episode is great.
Yeah, it's called Life is Short for your listeners. Max Greenfield was a couple months ago now.
But he stands out. That was a really fun one.
Jerry O'Connell, was good.
That was a good one.
I think the people that
David Harbour was good. That was recently. A couple weeks ago was David Harbour. That was great.
Our grandmother was on the show. She's 103. She was 102 at the time. But that was really interesting for us, and we've gotten really nice feedback about that. We wondered how an episode like that would be because she's not famous and she's not somebody who's known and
yet.
That's true. She's an up and comer.
Yeah.
But we had really nice feedback from that episode, and we just selfishly, of course, love talking to her. And so the format of the show is Christian and I we talk about our perception of the guest prior to the interview, and then I do the interview with the guest, and then at the end, the two of us, Christian and I, kind of unpack the conversation.
Also, since it's only been out for a year, there's about 50 episodes, so you don't really have to cherry pick. You could start from the beginning with Neil Patrick Harris,
was good,
and then Olivia Wilde and Sam Rockwell. So if you want to start from the beginning and just work your way through, that would be cool too.
It is a quarantine after all.
Yeah, you have plenty of time.
Yeah, you have plenty of time. Well, if we've achieved anything here today, let's hope that we got Grandma more press for sure.
Exactly.
She needs it.
Well, thank you guys so much for
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. This was
talking
really
some baseball and various other topics on MLB The Show.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Hope baseball comes back soon.
I know. Miss it so much.